I felt totally alone. Like I was looking from some other point, and I was just watching everybody open gifts and laugh and talk, and I was totally just not there. And it was the most uncomfortable feeling because I felt like I was losing on my connection to even my family. It's a really, really good question. As men who have an idea to transform the world around them, there's sacrifice that got to be made. This is our life. This is not a job for us, right? You know, as an entrepreneur, we live this day in, day out, on vacation, away from it. It doesn't matter where we are. Yeah. It doesn't matter what's happening. I mean, you could be talking about at a funeral. Yeah. And your brain will still lock into what do you do? I wasn't listening in the way that she needed. I didn't understand it, right? It was a realization that this would be the last one.
Have you ever wondered if the grass was greener on the other side? Where you're married and you're thinking about what would life actually look like if you were separated from your wife? Well, in today's episode of the Man Cave Talk, we're going to be exploring this concept of the grass being greener, having gone through a divorce myself, and also still kind of having repercussions of that divorce, and also having a conversation with a really good friend about a situation that we're going to dive into a little bit later so that you can understand and know if the grass is actually greener on the other side. Ani, what's up, brother?
Oh, good to see you, brother. How
Bro,
you doing?
welcome back to the Man Cave Talk, man.
Thank you for having me back, brother. Good to be here.
Dude, so the last time you were on the Man Cave Talk, we had a phenomenal conversation.
Absolutely.
Phenomenal conversation. And there's been some updates.
Yeah, that's what you call it, right? You call it updates. Absolutely.
There have been some updates, man.
Absolutely.
What's going on?
Man, where do I start, man? Life just changes, man. I think probably in the way that they said, life is lifing.
Yeah.
And I think as we grow, we come into new understandings of how we're connecting to people, and we start realizing that there may be some disconnects that are expanding and causing you to have to reevaluate relationships. So since the last time we talked, you know, my family dynamic has changed. Almost kind of like what you were just talking about is, you know, is the grass greener on the other side? Is it always? And then sometimes is it as green as you thought it was on the side that you're on? You know.
Talk to me about that, because right now you and your wife, you guys are in an interesting place and experiencing some level of separation.
Yeah.
What do you think about your grass and your pasture in terms of like what's actually going on, because you're going through it right now? Right. So what do you think? Do you feel like the grass is not as green, and like talk to us about that?
It's funny. So let's stick with this grass because it's interesting analogy we can use.
Yeah.
Is that when you're eating from the same pasture, you don't really know anything about the other grass, right?
Yeah.
Because you're just staying in this pulled off area that you've kind of been eating grass out of.
Right.
And the grass has been good for you. It's been good. And it's not until maybe you hit a dry patch of that grass where you at and that you start to realize, wait a minute, this is not really sufficing, or it's not really giving me everything that I need. And then not only, and again, I don't want to ever make it sound selfish, but on the other person as well may be saying the same exact thing because they're eating from the same grass patch.
Right.
Kind of cordoned off for just, you know, you guys. And I think as you begin to do that, then you start to really say, is the sustenance really giving me all the strength that I need? Is this grass or this thing that I'm eating or this thing that I'm consuming, is it giving me everything that I need? And when you start to question that, it does make you look out and say, is that grass over there greener? And I'm going to stick with the adage that it's not. It's just different. It's not that it's better. It's not that yours is worse. It's just that yours no longer is giving you enough sustenance to maintain. And you start to want to wonder. And once that question hits your mind as, is that one better? Then you start wandering out of the passion that you're in. And I think that's kind of where my wife and I found ourselves in this new territory.
So this is the man cave talk. So we gonna talk.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're in your marriage. What would you say? What would you say was not being fertile for you, and what was not growing in your pasture in your marriage?
I would say that
And to be clear, this has no this question isn't intended to make your wife a villain,
absolutely.
right? This is just from your perspective as to how you feel. I know your wife and she's an amazing person. It's just the differences of how you guys feel. That's what we're dealing with, right? Just to be clear.
Yeah, absolutely. I would never, because fortunately, this situation that we're going through is not as much of a nasty, angry situation as it is just a growing situation, a realization of certain things that, and this is so, I'll backtrack a little bit and just say, the communication of expectations is super, super important. Really understanding and having the other person understand what you expect is huge in being nurtured, for it to be nurtured, so you to be happy and content. And I think that when you asking me like, what do you think, where do you think that we realized, or what do you think was missing?
Yeah.
I think it was, for my wife, from what she's kind of expressed to me, was that I wasn't communicating as much. I wasn't listening in the way that she needed. And I didn't understand it, right? Because, we think that we do, we think that we do, right?
Yeah.
They say, listen to me, you say, oh, I am, but as businessmen, as, leaders, and having to manage so many things, I think that my listening may not have been in the present moment at all times.
Let's break that down a little bit, because she's like, "Hey, I feel like you're not hearing me and you're not communicating. I'm saying I need these things, but I'm not getting them." What do you feel made you not hear her in that time?
I would say partially not knowing that I wasn't listening, because I would think that I was, right? I would say, you said it to me, I'm going to now do that. I'm going to try my best to listen.
Yeah.
But then I had to realize that I'm also, and most entrepreneurs will understand this, I'm out dealing with the world, and my brain is processing things days in advance. I very rarely, and I know this is not healthy, but very rarely am I present. I'm always thinking about the future.
Sure.
I'm preparing for battle. I'm preparing to go out and make these adjustments.
Yeah.
So in this moment, as you requested, as my wife was coming requesting, say, hey, I want to talk to you. I'm talking, but my brain is partially still.
You're not really here.
Yeah. I'm trying, because I'm listening, I'm talking, I'm focusing, but at the same time, a glimpse of something to pop in my head. Oh, remember, you got to make this phone call later. So I'm listening, but I'm still thinking about some other things. So I think that I was listening, but maybe not to the intent that she was requiring from me.
And when you're not present, that tends to have a long-term effect, because you hear what they're saying, but you don't really apply the things that they need from what they said. So what do you think, because I'm sure other people
Absolutely.
are experiencing this, man, it's very hard for me to be present. What do you think is a great way, strategy, thing, or have you figured this out yet to start being present in the moment to hear and kind of turn that other side of your brain off?
It's a really, really good question because I have conflictual answers for it. So I'll give you the first one. The first one is probably the best thing to do would be really you have to turn off all of that, right? You really truly have to ground yourself.
But how?
You have to be willing to sacrifice, and you have to really just say, I'm stepping away. I'm at this moment doing this. And so here's what I'll say to you. The reality is, and this is where I say the duality comes in that. As entrepreneurs, I don't know how to do that because this is our life. This is not a job for us, right? You know, as an entrepreneur, we live this day in, day out, on vacation, away from it. It doesn't matter where we are. Yeah. It doesn't matter what's happening. I mean, you could be talking about at a funeral. Yeah. And your brain will still lock into what do you know, you could see something at the funeral and say, I gotta make sure I remember to do that.
Right.
It's so ingrained in every single thing that you do. So here's what I'll give you. This is something that in my realization, and it may not work for everybody. And
sure.
Not even say work, it may not hit everybody the same way. So I'm gonna give you just something I understand. As leaders, as men who have an idea to transform the world around them, there's sacrifice that got to be made. And I know it sounds harsh, and I hope nobody doesn't judge it without really thinking about it. But sometimes, in order to create greatness, there's just things that just have to be done, and it's just not gonna fit into that box that everybody needs it to fit into.
Sure.
It's just really not, and it sounds hard because for a woman, they're never going to accept that sometimes. You may find one that, if you're lucky enough to find one that understands it. But if your wife or your lady or your spouse is not totally part of the movement and totally understands what this takes for you to be this person, this world changer, she's going to always be missing that. And you're going to have to be okay with knowing that she's going to beef about that. And just that you're going to have to do it.
Yeah. So what do you think, why do you think you weren't able to communicate what your mission and what you're actually trying to achieve is and get her on that page? What do you think is...
Part of it would be selfishness, I would say.
On whose part?
My part.
Okay.
My part.
What do you mean by that?
Not really worried about if everybody understood what I had to do. Like, I'm just kind of like, I got to do this. Because this is my purpose in life. This is my dream. This is my thing from a child, right? Nothing can derail me from what I'm just saying what I was saying.
Sure. Yeah.
Because with having a spouse, then you need to say, I need to bring you into this, right? Another part of it would be not... You know this journey. This journey is a lonesome journey, and you got to go within yourself, right? And within myself, I block out everything around me. Sometimes I just can't. I can't utilize the time to try to explain to somebody else what I'm dealing with because it's just I'm locked in. I got to go, and we know entrepreneurship is cyclical, ups and downs, highs and lows. And I'm always basically in go mode. And sometimes I just didn't take the time out to nurture her understanding of what this meant. I just would do it and say, hey, do you see, I need your help, or I would expect her to just understand. But if a person is not of the cloth of an entrepreneur and understands that struggle, they're not just gonna get it because you say it. You literally have to stop and bring them in as active members or active participants in what you're going through. Because otherwise, them just looking at it, it looks beautiful, right? You come home, you got all your money there, you enjoying all these things.
Yeah.
For them, Yeah, I'm like, yeah, you had. I saw you arguing on the phone. I saw you, but that's done because now here we are on vacation. You're having a great time. But they don't understand the emotional drain, the complexities of dealing and going within self to understand. Like I'm at war internally sometimes.
Wow.
Right? It's a lot. So I think for me, I was selfish in my explanation. I was selfish in giving of myself and letting her truly understand what this journey was going to be about and being fair to her, because she may have said, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Like she may have had, I didn't even give her a choice because I didn't explain, again, clearly communicate what this journey was going to be like. Hey, are you ready for this ride? This is a roller coaster. This is not what you think is going to be just because you're seeing it look nice. Internally and being a part of this is not that.
Yeah.
It dips. And sometimes it dips quick.
Yeah.
And it comes back up, and it But you got to be prepared for it. You got to be built for it. Right. And I think I didn't selfishly and this is selfishly as an afterthought, because at the time I thought I was doing,
yeah.
But now that I've had time to reflect and understand it, that wasn't the case. That wasn't the case.
So how do you, now that you're taking a level of accountability in that, have you been able to share the accountability and responsibility that you're taking for your understanding with a likelihood of saying, can you forgive me, to even see if things could work, and giving the option of this, I've seen my flaws. Is that even a conversation for you?
Unfortunately, I think we may have just passed that point, right? I think, and this is with anything, I think once you do once there's a certain amount of disconnect, it's really hard to come back and say, I'm just sorry, and that's enough.
Right.
Because there's enough resentment and pain that's been built up. And not only that, the resentment and pain that, let's just say, it may have been inflicted on that person causes them to do resentment and pain back. Right? So now we both are angry and moving apart slowly but surely. But now, like you said, what is it? They say that if you could be on a course and 1 degree off, by the time you look back, you're 20 miles apart. And I think that's kind of what happened. Like, we weren't far off. Like, we didn't just boom and split. I think we just kind of over time, and without healing it in the moments, without healing it and addressing it when it was happening, over time we look back and now we look and we way over there and I'm way over here.
Yeah.
As opposed to being, you know.
So you bring up a really good point, over time. So was there ever a key point where some of these conversations started happening that made it get here? Because I always like to say, us men, we're like, you know, like how women, right? This is the, it feels like all women are the same, where they go in a car, they see all the lights on the dashboard lit up like a Christmas tree, and literally they jump in and they drive as if nothing's wrong, right? They jump, but until the car blows up, then when the car blows up, then they're like, oh, hey, babe, something's wrong with the car, right? And us men, we're the same in our marriages, where we're like, we're good. I'm getting some sex every now and then. We're not arguing, right? Was there ever a time where you kind of knew, but it was just like, I'm too busy, I'm too focused on achieving all of this that I don't have time to deal with that right now, and so I'm going to deal with that later?
Plenty of times, especially in hindsight, which is 2020. Plenty of times I saw that I need to make an adjustment. Yeah. And I may make adjustment temporarily, right? You know, to satisfy that need of feeling like I'm doing what's right. But then I'm back to me, because again, and that's why I said selfishness. The fact that I went back to what I felt I needed to do, because I'm in the midst of this battle for realization of purpose and that kind of thing. I'm in the midst of it. You know, you have a great job, you're doing well. You know, and I never it's not a slight to anyone that the job market, but that job is a security. It's like you go, you do what you're supposed to do, you come home.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about it. Entrepreneurship is not like that. You know, and I think that I would appease the complaint. So she says, hey, you know, listen, or hey, we haven't gone out to dinner, we haven't gone to a play, or we haven't gone out to the well. And I would immediately say, okay, great. I know it. I'm aware of it. Okay, great. I'm going to come and bring flowers to your job. I'm going to take you out to eat. I'm going to take you to a show. I'm going to do all of these things. And this may last 2-3 months. And then I get back into my thing. Right. I did that. I'm great.
You check that box.
I did it. Right. I did it. So now I'm going. But it's, so I did see signs. I did see things. And I thought I was doing the things right. I thought I was making the necessary changes, but in actuality, maybe it wasn't consistent enough. Maybe, and again, a lot of these things are theories. I don't know exactly what it was or what it wasn't really. You know, I'm still honestly going through this process and trying to understand everything, because I really don't understand everything at this point.
So, you said something that really kind of rang to my spirit. And I'm like, I never really thought of it like that, where you said that entrepreneurship being this and purpose thing that we're really trying to get done and go for. But then on the other side, it's like family. Why do we see, and why do you see entrepreneurship as this thing you're trying to conquer, but family and marriage as something we just maintain?
And again, this is a work in progress, though.
Sure.
So I don't ever want to express to anybody that this is something that I'm concrete standing on.
Yeah.
This is a work in progress, though. And I like it as to say, it's great, because we were just talking about Sam Walton. If Sam Walton had not made the sacrifices that he made for his business, would Walmart be what it is? His family has suffered. It's known. There's, you know, the kids, you know, it's written about. But they had to suffer for him to create something that great. There's no way he could have done both.
Well, in the book, he actually saves the family by coming together a lot more. He's actually one of the people that the reason why I chose to go deeper on him is because he was able to save his marriage with Helen, that's his wife, in starting to have like weekly meetings, and they set up a structure that allow them to do the business together and bring it back, essentially. So I think he's a great example that we could also look up to, that saved his marriage because he was like, this is also very important to me. I want to invest time in this, something to conquer. And I'm using, you're kind of like how you see it in, we're trying to conquer entrepreneurship. He also tried to conquer his family and marriage.
I'm going to give you something with that. Because once you use that word, save, the only time you're saving someone is about to die. He went and saved it and brought it back, because it was probably breaking. Because of what his purpose was to literally create Walmart.
Right.
And he saw, while he was doing this,
right,
which he had to do that in order to be and live his destiny, he saw that this was hurting. And he said, you know what, now we're going to have, we didn't start out with weekly family meetings. We didn't start out, I had to just say, hey, I'm on the road. I'm jumping in trucks. I'm riding across country. I'm doing. She was suffering. There's no way. I'm just being realistic. There's no way she wasn't hurting.
Yeah.
But he just was. And what I will say, culturally, he's coming from another time when that man-woman family thing was different. You know, they looked at it differently. It was a curse to not take care of your wife. It was divorce wasn't prevalent as much back then, you know, so it's more values in certain things. So but even through that, he still had his wife and children had to suffer to create something that great. And you go down the line when you talk about Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, talking about a Jeff Bezos, for them to create what they have created, which has changed the world. Elon, I don't care who you want to use. That family side suffers because for greatness of that level, sacrifices are made. And unfortunately, I'm not saying this in that it's right or wrong. I'm just saying that if you just look in the history of great men who've accomplished things. Now, did they have a wife? Did they love their wife? Absolutely. Because I think all of them love their women. I think all of them love their family.
Right.
But this drive for what they was trying to accomplish, when as a man has a purpose and it's about, literally something of that gravity, unfortunately, sometimes if that wife doesn't come in, if that man doesn't reach a point of consciousness and say, okay, and usually if you notice, a lot of times it'll be when they start making the money that they start saying to themselves, let me bring my wife in the back. Because now the flow is happening. They've put the work in. They've already made the sacrifice. They've already dug in the dirt. They've done all these things. So now is when everything is okay, they can say, I could spend more time. Because now you're making millions of dollars. You can say, at this point, okay, hey, John, you take care of the office. I'm not coming in this month. I'm spending this with the family, which is great because now you should be able to repair it. But in the trenches of it, there's and not to be insensitive, there's carnage, there's sacrifice, there's people that get hurt. It just does, from what I've seen.
So I think it's interesting what you shared, and it's one of the reasons why I do what I do, right? Because Jeff Bezos, he was with his wife when he started Amazon. And she was a major part of what he was doing. When they got started, they separated the bigger it got. Right? Like Sam Walton, she was before it became huge as well. Let's go to iPhone. Steve Jobs. She was also before iPhone and all those things. And she came between the era of him getting let go from Apple, and he went over and started his other companies, and by the time he came back, he was married. So his wife is on record even after he died saying, like, hey, I used to talk to my husband for at least 2 to 3 hours a day. Right. And the reason why I dug into this was because I wanted to answer this question. Is it possible to build something great without neglecting your family? And from what I'm researching, the answer is yes. Even this great trader, investor, Warren Buffett, I mean, his situation is a little weird, but he still says and talks about his wife that died, and how much of a big role that she played in his life, right? And so here's my thesis on this. Is it the absolute truth? Who knows? But I believe that having a framework going in, I think as men, we wait till we have to save it to learn a framework.
Absolutely.
Because it's after they threaten to leave us or we're in some level of despair that makes us want to understand this. And I could say the same for myself, because I had to go through a divorce to even get to this point that I'm at here. Right? Like, I had to lose it to be able to even get to this point of realization. And my wife, I heard very similar words of her being like, bro, this isn't what I asked for, kind of thing. Very similar words that made me be like, I heard this before. And the result was not good.
Not what I wanted, right.
And so I stopped everything. 2.5 years, and I stopped the business, everything, and just focused on us, because I didn't want the same result that I had before. Was I still purposeful? Was I still like wanting to fulfill my purpose? Yes. but I wanted to do it with her at my side.
Mhm.
You know, and so my question to you is, do you believe that it's possible to do it with someone at your side, even as you go through this right now? Is it going to be, well, I'm going to fulfill and do all of the things that I need to do? Or I'm going to do both? Because that you're going to be at that crossroads at some point.
Absolutely. I would say, I think that anything is possible in that regard, right? I definitely believe that with the right foundation, the right support, all of those things are possible.
Yeah.
So what I'll do is I would say, and this is just, again, this is not to take away from
we're on the man cave talk. Let's just go.
Not to take away from their journey, what they may have said, but we know that those books are written for a purpose, with intention to sometimes
elevate, right?
Look real good, right? Sound good. Do I believe that all those women didn't suffer? I don't believe that. I believe
100%.
They all suffered.
100%.
I just think that's, even though they were there, Steve Jobs' wife there from the beginning, Jeff Bezos' wife there from the beginning, all their wives were there from the beginning. In that journey, I just don't see how, and until you come to like how you did, you had to lose one to come back to say, I'm going to do this differently. But having been the first wife through that journey, they had to suffer because till their men realize my wife is suffering, right? And I think that's part of it. So when you ask, can you do it without the suffering? Yes, but it's a level of experience that you've had to have gone through first.
Yeah.
It's a level of support. Like, let's just say if you like your son now, your son may be able to avoid certain things because he's going to come to you and say, hey, and you can identify to him, hey, I've been through this already.
Sure.
But now if you had never been through it and your son was going through it, he'd have to go through it to get that level of wisdom and awareness that, hey, my wife is saying, what do I need to do? Because I'm going to tell you, as a man, I didn't have a blueprint on how do I save this? How do I fix this? All I knew as a man was protect, provide, move forward. That's it. That's all. I didn't have anything else to say. Nurture, be soft, be cuddly. Or that wasn't in my framework, right? It was do this. Hey, as long as I'm providing for you, as long as I'm taking care of you, as long as I'm not hurting you, purposely, intentfully hurting you, I'm not doing anything other than nurturing you, as long as I'm pouring into you, I'm doing a great job compared to what I have seen, which is men totally devalue their relationship and their wife, or their children and neglect that. But I'm saying to myself, no, I'm not doing that. But again, without, and this is what you say, clear framework and communication from your spouse, and you at the same time,
100%.
Then it's almost, in my mind, I would say then at that point, it becomes almost impossible for somebody not to suffer in your pursuit of relentless success. It's just going to be hard.
See, but this is a thing, and I think it's heightened for entrepreneurs and founders, right?
Absolutely.
I think we suffer with this even as 9-to-5ers. 9-to-5ers suffer with this too because there is no framework that helps us as men to understand how to actually manage and run a marriage. Where is that model, right? If the people that we look up to are the people that's getting divorced and
right.
In life, it's like, hey, if you want to achieve something great, you're gonna go through a divorce. Right. If that's what we see, then we're gonna accept that to be true.
Absolutely.
But I don't think it's true.
Right.
It's not true, right? And this is one of the epidemics, I would say, that I would love to bring a stop to, because there is a framework that I have seen and started to implement in my life that has bring about change. Now, would I move as fast as someone who was just like, I'm just running over anyone who comes in my way?
Right.
No, because now I got to train my team to be on the same page and move at a speed that doesn't cause hurt.
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
But because of my commitment to God first and my wife,
Right.
that's the reason why I'm like, I gotta move at this speed, see where things go. It's almost like you stress test it, make adjustments, rebuild, and then continue going, right? So I'll share with you one of the things, like how we were talking about being present.
Right.
I remember when my wife said to me, bro, when we're out, when we're in the movies, when we're at date night, you're always on your phone. You're always like, you're not here.
Right.
And she said, this makes me feel second to everything that you're doing. My wife used to say that to me a lot. And so I'm like, how could I get better at this? I literally had to train myself like a dog.
Right.
To be able to be present. And I'll share with you one of the things that I did. One of the things that I did, and I still do to this day, is have lunch with my phone turned upside down. Sounds really simple.
Right.
But it doesn't matter who calls me.
Got it.
It doesn't matter what text comes through. I try to not even watch a text coming through on my watch when I'm eating, and I'll tell you what happens. At the time, I was doing wholesaling, right? And it would be the time where I sit to eat when all of the buyers and sellers want to call me back.
Right.
So imagine seeing seller or caller pop up.
Shaking?
Oh my God. Bro, like a crackhead. You're like, oh my God.
That's the money, right?
That's
money calling.
money calling.
Money calling me. Absolutely. Yeah.
And I had to train myself to not allow the money to control me and to control my emotions. When those things was coming, that I had enough discipline to say, sit,
Right.
don't move, sit.
Right.
Sometimes I won, sometimes I failed.
Absolutely.
But that was the training and the conditioning I had to go through that then allowed me to go and be present with my wife, have people call and be like, I'm on date night.
Absolutely.
And just be present. Like, bro, sit.
Nah, that's a powerful self conditioning, because you did it for yourself.
Yes.
You know, which is, I give you a lot of kudos, man, because I know those shaking moments. Like I've done that with my wife. Like, listen, you mind just us having dinner? Yeah, sure. And she would say turn the phone off, and I would turn it over, right? It's not off. It still rings, and I'm just sitting there, I'm looking, I'm hearing it ring, and I just glance at it quick, fast.
Yeah.
And I lost at that point, right?
Yeah.
I didn't discipline enough to say, don't touch it. And so when you're able to do that, I think that's a huge accomplishment, but also a huge testament to you being aware of what it takes to keep your family together. And the sacrifice that you have to make on your side now, sacrifice on your business to say, this is more important because the business I'll catch up to.
Exactly.
And all of them sellers, I'm sure 90% of you is able to call back later.
But here's the beautiful thing about that. When you call them back and you tell them, hey, sorry, man, I was on date night.
Right.
You know what they say? They're like, oh my God, people still do that? Man, they give you so much kudos. It builds up a credibility that nothing else would give you.
100%.
And now all of a sudden they're engaging with you in a different way because of your values.
Yes, I believe in one. I've done that with my daughter. I'll give you one example.
Yeah.
One time I was talking to this guy, he called me and I wasn't able to talk to him. Then he called me back and I said, let me just answer. But I was actually making pancakes for my daughter. So he's calling me, hey, what's up, man? Listen, I apologize, I didn't answer earlier. I was just I'm making breakfast for my daughter and she's in the background. And he got off the phone. He's like, all right, man, let's call me later. When I spoke to him later, same exact thing. Man, listen. And now he's on the phone with his wife. So they're like, it's all three of us on the phone. He's like, man, I'm definitely doing it with him because I heard him talking to his daughter, and I really respect how you were handling that in that moment, trying to navigate both, but you put more attention on your daughter. So I understand what you're saying. Like, people look at you and hold you.
They're humans too.
Yeah. It does mean
especially people who you're doing business with. See, people think like business is still a people business. And so if it is that you're a good person, that tells me something about you that makes me want to do business with you.
Absolutely.
And going through that experience made me be like, oh, this is actually a superpower.
You use this, right?
Exactly.
You use this, right?
Even if I wasn't on date night, I'll tell them I'm on date night.
Right, like it's a point for that. No, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. 100%. It does. And I didn't know that until I was in it, but you're 100% right. It makes a difference.
And so now that you could actually have it as a superpower, you're able to now be more present and hear, because you don't have to think about the deal or the person that this call or something like that. That's just one of the things. Another thing is just like scheduling really helps too, bro. Like having a schedule that's mapped out for weeks and months, knowing when you're gonna do certain things. Because if I know that I have time dedicated to planning, which I do, if my mind starts to think about something, I say, sit. You're doing that on Thursday at 6 o'clock.
Got it.
You don't have to go there. You know, the most I may do is take out my phone and make a note. Just write it down. Like if I have a new idea, I'll just take out a phone and write it down. There are many times we're in the car driving, and I may either do a voice note to myself or just write something down because it's a fresh idea. I'm not going to elaborate on it in that moment, but I need to. Yeah. Right. But here's the beautiful thing that happens too. Once you start showing that presence and putting your wife first, all of a sudden she starts serving you in the same way and saying, no, babe, it's okay. You could talk, like, call them. All of a sudden the whole thing shifts and now they start serving you.
Because they're important. They realize you've given them a level of importance.
Yes.
And now they're willing to share some of that.
Yes.
Say, I don't need it all the time. You
exactly.
100%.
Exactly. 100%. And they become more understanding.
I would say, for what you're saying, right? Men need to start it out. They need to have this understanding from the beginning, because that's the problem, is that when you have to go through so much damage to then become aware of it, the damage is done. Not to say none of the damage is not irreparable, but it's work. Now you're working double time, triple time to fix what if you would have started out right, you would have never had to fix it, right? So you starting it at the beginning with you and your wife is an amazing process, because you had the opportunity to kind of catch things early and make the adjustments, as opposed to letting it manifest and fester in her heart and become an actual hardening of her heart against you. And then she begins to hate business because she says, that business is there.
100%. 1,000%.
So you started out early, and that's what I think. I think my wife almost at the point she started to hate business. She hated when she saw me in the office, would be immediate resentment. Immediate like anger would be in her, or immediate, not even just anger, separation. Like, he's in there, I'm not even talking. I'm not even coming in to say hello.
Because that's the thing that is dividing us.
Yes. You can't even love it. You can't even support it now.
No.
You can't even lend your support to it. To say, I want to help you, because that thing that I'm helping you do is driving me away from you. So I can't even be a part of it. I have to literally totally say, that disgusts me. Think about it. So now here it is. I'm alone on this island trying to create something that's for us, in my mind, that you don't even like. You hate. And secretly, you would almost do things that would make it not work, because you want me to get away from it. When I say not work, meaning you just won't come in and support. You won't come in and give me the relief or talk to me. You won't come in and say, take a break. Come on, let me make you something to eat. Or let's go and get a quickie. You know, something that would make me feel like, but now everything is like, I'm against that business, which you are the business, then I'm against you in a certain degree, right? And it becomes so intricately involved. And, it's a lot of layers, because as we talk, and I know we've talked about this before, like, a lot of things, not mean a lot of things, I'm gonna say most things, everything that you are and the way you think is based on experiences. Whether it's experience reading another person's story, whether it's experience that you've actually had, but your experience is what makes you up. So I go back and I say, well then, not only is she having an experience of what we're dealing with at this moment, but what are her experiences in life? Did her father neglect the family for work?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Did you see some? So what other things are playing into this whole psychological circle that we're in now? And if you don't catch these things and be having awareness of these things early, man, they turn into a tsunami, brother.
But this is, I feel like this is where we fail as leaders, because we don't, first of all, we're not aware that the business is the thing that's causing separation and anxiety in the home. And being aware enough to know how to prevent it and stop it by actually going through a process and a framework that allows us to be on the same page. For me, you know what makes me think about all of these concepts? Not seeing somebody do it. I'm like, there has to be a way, and I hate losing.
Right.
I hate losing. And so, and when I say losing, I mean even losing against myself.
Which is the real biggest loss.
Oh my gosh. Like, I remember when one of my friends said to me, she's like, do you know you're addicted to sex? Like, no. It's like,
right.
no, I'm not.
Like,
she's like, exactly. I just enjoy it.
Right.
She's like, okay, stop. It's like, cool.
Right.
Couldn't stop.
Yeah, right.
And that battle, that internal battle, I'm like, I cannot lose. I have to win. Like, I have to be in control of me. And so I went on a journey of being celibate, even before my wife.
Right.
I met my wife on this journey. This mastery, and even in the marriage, how did I come up with that concept of just sitting down and turning your phone upside down and not doing anything? It was, these aren't things that somebody's teaching me. They're like, how can I master me?
Yeah.
But it's because of one thing. It's because of the vision of the kind of husband I believe exists. And if it doesn't exist, I have to create it.
Absolutely.
And it's like, if I don't see it, I'm going to prove to mankind that you could be happily married and have a very successful business.
You just said something super powerful, brother. I want to just stop you right there, right? Because remember, originally I was saying to you that entrepreneurs have a purpose that's bigger than, and that's why we allow things to sacrifice. I just realized something as you're talking, what your purpose was. That's why you were able to do what it is you did, because your purpose was to create world-changing ideal of what a husband can be and still be successful. So you understand, you actually are, in fulfilling your purpose, is to keep your wife, you know what I mean? As opposed to, if it was a guy who was just saying, I want to create the biggest trucking business in the world, has nothing to do with his wife.
Yeah.
Has nothing to do with his family.
Yeah.
That's a singular purpose to him. But your purpose is to say, no, I want to show, my purpose is to show greater self-control and inclusivity to my family in my goal of developing myself as this huge life-changing thing or world-changing entity.
Yeah.
Right? Your entity is change for the purpose of family.
Yes.
You are living that, and that's why the beauty of what you've been able to do is so evident to everybody, like you said, is because you are living out your purpose. So men need to find a way. So for a man who's doesn't have that purpose, and their only purpose is to, let's just say, build this billion-dollar business, right? Tech company, whatever it is, they need to find a way to incorporate what you have discovered. And this is where your relevance to the world comes in, is that they need to discover, what has this person, let me take some of this formula, that this man has had to create because he didn't have an idea, he had to create it. Let me take some of this formula this man has had to create and at least implement that into my goal of me making this business, this worldwide trucking company.
I'm creating it for them. I'm creating this for us.
There you go, man.
It's not for me.
Right.
I am a sacrificial lamb.
Yes, indeed.
In going through the things that I go through to be able to then share it.
It's a powerful revelation, though, brother. As I'm listening to it, it literally just hit me. That's a powerful revelation. I just saw why what I found so difficult, you found so easy, because your purpose was connected to that.
Yes.
Whereas my purpose wasn't connected to that. My purpose was about me.
Yes. Yeah.
It wasn't about us.
Yeah.
It was about me and that selfishness of that feeling like you said.
But it's not selfishness. It's because we have not been taught.
We don't have it, right?
We don't have it, which is why it's so like, bro, in pursuing entrepreneurship, and just marriage period, there's nothing that shows that you could be great or super successful and do this simultaneously. And it's not that they're not people that do it. But what would they tell you? Oh, communication is key, or some generic nonsense that doesn't really help you.
Right, absolutely, because you don't know how to implement it.
No,
it sounds good, but how do I do that?
And so my thought is, okay, if it is that I could go to a business seminar and learn business, if I could go to a marketing seminar and have a marketing coach and have sales coach and learn all of these different things, why is there not something for marriages that I could learn how to implement this the same way?
Right. And not the ordinary marriage coach.
Not
the regular one you go to the church, you might get great counseling, not going to marriage therapy, but no. Something that has a true framework for you to live your purpose, be successful in your thing, and be successful.
Yes.
I haven't, before us talking and watching you develop this idea, I haven't really seen that before. Like, I don't know nobody that had it. Like, everybody that I've ever seen has been lopsided. You know, it's been this, or I'm just a great husband and I've never really lived out my dream and I just say I just had a great,
happy wife, happy life.
Right. You settle it.
It's the worst advice ever.
You understand what I'm saying?
Worst advice, bro.
For any human being to touch on this planet and be gifted the opportunity by the Creator to come here and make a difference and not see that through, you have just robbed the world of the gift that God has brought to the world. Because really, you come in with your own natural gift.
Yes.
You know, every single human being comes here with a gift to give to humanity. So when you don't live that out in any way, I think I would say that's probably one of the biggest sins you could actually have, is to not live out your gift from the Creator. Like, to not do that at all.
If you go ask my wife, what's my biggest fear? I always tell her it's not fulfilling my purpose. It's my biggest fear. A lot of things don't scare me. Not fulfilling my purpose, bro?
Yeah.
Oh, man, scary.
Especially when you know what your purpose is. Now, if you didn't know your purpose, it might not matter as much.
Exactly.
You're just wandering through the wilderness, right? When you know it and you still don't do it.
And so here's the levels to purpose, and then I want to pull the conversation back. The levels to purpose is, one, identifying it, discovering it. But then typically your purpose, you may not have the skills to get it to where it needs to be. And so then you go on this journey of becoming someone who could be visible enough so that your purpose gets out. And that's the journey that I'm on. Because, okay, great, Keston, you know all this stuff. Now you got to learn marketing. Now you got to learn sales. Now you got to learn how to run a business. Now you got to learn all of these things. Otherwise, your purpose will never get out.
Right.
It's great.
Yeah.
Great concept. And so this is where I like to say there's a major difference. People tend to kind of bring them together, but I want to separate them between purpose and potential. Purpose is the thing that you discover. That's your why. That's the thing. Your potential is how big that thing grows. right? Like how big could you get it? That's potential.
Developing your ability to do that.
To do that thing, developing your reach. That's your potential.
Right, absolutely.
Right. And I think it's a very important differentiator, because you'd hear some people talking about, maximizing their potential and all of that, but it's like, but you don't even know where you're going.
Right.
You haven't even discovered your purpose.
Right.
You're gonna get to some place, billions of dollars, and there's a lot of stories about these founders who've created these huge companies, got there and super unfulfilled,
lost,
end up committing suicide, end up doing crazy stuff because it wasn't purposeful. Right. So anyway, that's a whole, we could go down that rabbit hole. But I wanna bring the conversation back to talking about marriage and that kind of thing, but bring it a little forward, because as you're going through this process, we're in the new year, we're in 2025, but we just experienced Christmas.
Right.
And as you're going through this process, something happened on Christmas, and I said, I don't want you to tell me. Right. I want us to be on camera when you tell me, so that we can have a genuine conversation about it. What happened on Christmas Day?
Nothing happened as much as feeling.
Yeah, that's...
Felt like it was just this weird, like, out of body, space-like experience where everything just seemed to be happening and I was disconnected from everything. Like, I didn't feel love. I couldn't even find gratitude, and I struggled for that, because I wanted to be grateful that my children were still happy, regardless of what was happening. I wanted to still feel all of those things, right? And I was struggling for that. Like, it felt so disconnected, and it just put me back on the island. Like, I was just by myself. In the midst of all these people, I felt probably the most alone that I've felt in a very long time. Let me say that. In a very long time, I felt totally alone. Like, looking at them, it's like literally like I was looking from some other point, and I was just watching everybody open gifts and laugh and talk, and I was totally just not there. And it was the most uncomfortable feeling, because I felt like I was losing my connectivity or my connection to even my family, my children, and I was losing that. And it was a very, very eye-opening and saddening moment all at once. It was like wrapped up into this, and I was like saying to myself, like, you gotta process this. Like, what are you feeling? What is going on? Like, why you feel you're here? Why can't you enjoy them opening these? Why can't you enjoy the sound of the Christmas music playing? Why can't you enjoy any of these things? What is happening to you? Like, what are you dealing with? And
have you found the answer or anything close to a reason?
Honestly, it was a realization that this would be the last one. That's what I realized. I was a realization that this may be the last time. And I couldn't do it in the moment. It had to be when I was away, and I thought about, like, why is it? And it was like, it may be the last time you actually sit around this tree in a circle together with everybody who you've been with for the last 15 years. This is new. And that was the core of what I was feeling, and now knowing that connects to aloneness. You're going to be alone. Like, you're going to be alone. You're going to be separated from this joy, this feeling of love, this feeling of connectivity, of belonging. You're going to be removed from that. As unreal as that is, because here's what I'll say. I'm not. It's still mine. They still love me. They don't feel what I'm feeling. It's all me, independently. But in the moment, I had to grasp that, because, we talk about, a lot of us, we identify ourselves through our relationships. That becomes who we are. Like, I've talked to some brothers who have gone through the whole divorce process, and their whole identity was tied to them being a father, a provider, married to this person. You know what I mean? Like, everything they knew, that was that. And I felt that moment, that's what was happening to me. Like you feel like you're separating from it. But what I've learned and seen through the process of other brothers who have gone through, they have great relationships with their children if they desire to. They have great relationships. Now, it may take some repairing. It may take some things that you got to go through. Some of them even have great relationships with their ex-wife.
Sure.
Their ex-wife is still at dinner with them. I'm like, they still come together. The ex-wife and the new husband come to dinner and have dinner with them and the kids.
Yeah.
And I say, so why, but it's this dread. And I guess it's part of the transition process. You got to go through it and come out, but I think some of us get stuck in it. And that's what I didn't want to happen. That's why I say when you asked me how strange it was and what was different, what was so different, that's what it was. I felt alone and I felt like this was it. And I was being separated from the joy of my family. I was being separated from the love of the enjoyment of seeing everybody festive. I was separated from that, but it was all up in here.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have to be that way.
Right.
I have the power to control that, to change that. So
in hearing what you just said, bro, here's what came to mind. It's almost as if the experience that you had on Christmas Day, it's almost as if you have a point, right? Think of like we're at this point right here, and we all have visions of our lives that we see the future and we see it going a certain way. And it sounds like what you were experiencing was as if it has shifted to something else that you can't even see right now anymore. From the standpoint of, it's almost like having two alternative futures where it was like you're moving from one that you've had for the last 15 years to now another one that you can't even see and don't even know. And that feeling just sounds, it sounds unknown. It sounds unknown, and
Star Trek.
Exactly.
Traveling to the unknown universe, and you just don't know what to expect. You don't know what you're gonna have to encounter to find any level of similarity to what you just had. Are you ever gonna find anything similar to the security and comfort of what you felt you've grown and had and what you worked towards? Even like you said, you dream about an ending because of who you're going through this race with, right?
Yeah.
You say, all right, well, at some point we'll be on the island.
Yeah.
We'll be okay.
Yeah.
And now that whole dream that you worked towards and said,
it's gone.
It's fade, and it ain't gone. I'm watching it fade.
Yeah.
It didn't just disappear.
Yeah.
I'm actually watching, like I said, I'm sitting in the moment. I'm watching it change right in front of me. And that's the part that I think was very discomforting. I was watching it change, like in real time. Like they're having fun and they don't even know that I'm not even here. It's like, they're not even aware that I'm not even here.
Yeah.
And that was really like, even just saying it just now was like, wow, that's weird. Watching my children sit there and do what they're doing and they never look and see he's not even here.
Yeah.
Like I said, it was like I was outside of it. It was the strangest thing. It was like an out of body experience without doing the meditation.
Right.
It was like a totally different energy in that moment. Yeah. So it's something that I deal with.
Is it something you ever want to have again?
The separation or the feeling of love in the home? Which one?
I mean, it depends. Which one do you want? Which one don't you want?
I definitely ever go through this level of separation again. I would never want to go through this again. Right? I would definitely want to have my family. Like I don't necessarily want another family. Right? I don't want another family. I think my main concern, which has always been
when you say another family, you mean like
I wouldn't want to start over and try to create another family. I wouldn't want to.
You mean like kids or wife?
Kids and the wife part is probably subjective. Like I don't really know about the wife. I don't think I would want to get married again in this state where I am today.
Okay.
I don't know if that changes in 2 years. I don't know. What happens. But right now in my mind, no, I don't think I would want to get married. Would I want a life partner? Would I want somebody that I could really be with and hang out with? Sure, I think that would be great. I think that life is meant to be spent with someone that you can actually learn than to try to learn 20 people.
What's the difference between a life partner and a wife?
Just the signing of the paperwork, really. It's really the only difference.
But why does things change because of the signing of the paperwork?
I think that, and this may be due to my being in the moment of this thing, is that contracts make things into a business, and it takes away from it just being about love to me, because now there are other things that you have to answer to other than just your heart, right? It's now you're answering to these legalities and these other things that you have claim to, and I think that is the difference, because what was marriage prior to a contract? It's just a bond, two people standing before God and community and saying, I vow to take care of this person. Like, I vow to be with this person and love this person. Remember all those things, right? And
But what does the contract actually change?
I think the contract changes if one person is not in a place of maturity and understanding. That contract changes their perception of what they're doing. It creates them it almost like gives them in a sense, like an out, like all right, well, I know that if I get out of here, if I leave, I get this, I get this, I get this, I get this, I get that. As opposed to it being, we're just in this thing together. If we separate, then we leave. We just go, right? There's it would be my responsibility, my love towards you that would say, hey, if it was that there was things that I know I needed to do for you to make sure that you were okay, because of my respect and love for you, I would do that. But now we need a outside entity to do that for us. And I think that changes the level of just kindness and goodness that we would naturally have towards each other, that now you feel like I don't even have to be respectful. Because, okay, say for instance, so I'll give you this example and maybe this may help. A woman, you break up with a woman and there is no contract. She's relying on your kindness and her amicableness towards you to say, if there's something that could be done for me because I'm going to be less in a less advantageous position, then you're going to do that for me out of kindness. When there's a contract, she can spit on you, do whatever she wants to do, and you still have to give her whatever it is at that point, right? Especially now we're talking about no children. We're just talking about just a woman now, because now there's no children involved.
Yeah.
So I understand the point of children, but because now we're talking about, if I was to go into it again, there's no children involved, just me and this person. What would the contract be for then? The contract would literally just be to make sure that you get something when we break up, because what we need it for, right? That would be my thing. I wouldn't need that again. I would be okay with saying a life partner. Like, if we want to sit on a beach in front of a priest, reverend, whatever we did call that, and have that person under the stars and under God and under with our friends and family, say, hey, we committed to go on this journey with each other. I'm good with that. I don't need to, in my mind now and in my state now, I don't, because I think that contract, it makes it nastier when it's time to go.
You think the contract changes the person's behavior?
I'm gonna say, yeah. I'm gonna say you and I are in business, right? And if you didn't have a contract to govern certain things, certain people act a lot differently. But when they have that contract, it makes them do certain things. And when it's time to dissolve the company or the business relationship, they're guided by something. Because if they wasn't there, they may do something unscrupulous. So in that same thing, I think that contract in a relationship does the same thing. It binds you to a certain level of something where it takes away from partially, it can take away from the humanity in that. Like, I love you. I ain't got no reason to try to hurt you.
But is it the humanity, or is it just is it humanity, or is it just the mindset that goes with it? Because Do you think that getting into a marriage or getting into a life partnership without a set of guided rules or guided things like, hey, if this happens, this is how we're going to deal with it. If this happens, this is how we're going to deal with it. This is based off of what we've agreed upon. It's kind of like a will, right? It's kind of like a will. And if the death of the marriage happens, you assign these things to your will and your trust. Would you want to do something like that? Because I do think that there, because of human nature, there should be something in place, because when someone is hurt, you just never know who they become.
Absolutely, 100%.
But they should also have right to some things as well. And because we're both emotionally may not be in a great place to settle things, let's put this in writing as to saying, hey, I'm okay with, let's just, for the sake of this example, splitting things 50-50. I'm okay with, hey, you have half of the business, or like, because we're building this together, whatever that decision becomes. But do you think that's unreasonable, even if it did not require the government to be in your business? Because that's not my,
Right.
yeah.
I 100% agree. I think that is a great, going back to something that you alluded to earlier, which was having formula or format to things. So I think that's a great format to have. I think that a man and a woman who may be getting into a really serious relationship, it may be great to write down boundaries, write down things that you expect from each other. But this is where communication of expectations come into play. Because in the expectation of, hey, say, listen, I just want to ensure that we together and I spend my time with you and I give you my all, that I don't do this all for naught, right? There's something that comes out of this for both of us, right? Yeah. I don't want to build you up. If I know that your purpose and I'm behind your purpose and I'm helping you with that, I want to make sure that at least, I'm taking care of it. You kind enough that you are willing enough to do these things, right? And I do think that framework needs to be there. Some people, I would say, do need the law to demand that they do what they're supposed to do. Yeah. I believe that. I believe there's some men and some women who would probably say, to hell with you when we leave and not care, right? And they may need the governing. Yeah. I always found myself to be a righteous person and a person that I would never harm or do something intentionally to harm someone in that way and be that selfish. I believe that people are deserving of what they're deserving of, and you should, give them that. You know what I mean? I wouldn't withhold it, but I understand where a woman who doesn't know or doesn't know you or doesn't believe in you will say that they need that paper, that security, but then that may be the sign that they don't know you, right? Or they're not confident enough to say, you're going to do this. I just feel like for me, especially at this age of life, I don't need no document to govern me. I'm governed by something higher than the document, right? I'm governed by my own righteous principles and my own morality and integrity. And I would hope that at that point, that would be the guiding document, so to speak, that would tell me, you got to take care of this person. And, I was with them for the last 10 years. After your marriage, y'all was together for another 10 years, and now you this age and she's this age. You should want to see her okay. And I know in my heart that I would. Yeah. I would want her to be, especially it wasn't like, you went out and infidelity and slept with my best friend and doing this other nonsense, right? Like, it was just something that we just said, we're not working out. Yeah. Then I would say that.
How long into a relationship does somebody develop that level of trust and belief
I don't know that there is a actual statute time. I think there's just a time. I think it's just a time when you just come to that awareness. And I almost think you shouldn't really be in a marriage if you haven't reached that point anyway.
Mm.
If you haven't reached that point of saying that, yo, I'm ready to trust this person to lead or do whatever, I don't think that there is. I'm going to say something I listened to the other day. I was listening to two brothers. They were kind of going back and forth. And he said something that was really interesting to me that, and I haven't researched this, so, you know, if any of your audience has the time to do it and research, I would definitely say that the marriage, the license of marriage was done for a woman for the purpose of giving her security if she were to leave. Because at that time when those contracts were made, the woman were to leave. They were to leave.
Huh.
That the woman signed, that marriage thing was signed to ensure that the woman who, at those times when that contract when marriage was first made legal in that way, where it was necessary, where you would get half and all those things that happened, was done because a woman at that time wasn't working. She wasn't in the workforce. You know, these women just started. So at those times, it was to make sure that she was protected, that if she left, if you left her, you were commanded to do that, right? Because that would be what would be
fair
right
for her.
Exactly.
Right.
But now with women working, women having their own money, women having their own job, women having their own careers, women being more educated than men in certain cultures and certain demographics, all these different things, it doesn't really necessarily have the same meaning, because go prior to the marriage thing happening, men just naturally, they never kicked the woman out. I'm talking about just in olden time. They wouldn't just kick. They were bound by their relationship to the Creator to say, to God, to say, listen, you were with me, you did this, you got this. You take these, you take that house, you take the cattle, you take these things, and that's yours. And I understand that you have to have something. I wouldn't leave you destitute with absolutely nothing. Then it just became where society just said, we're going to step in and we're going to do this for tax purposes, whatever reasons, but we're going to now do it. And I just think that moving forward, times have changed as things do. You know what I mean? We don't operate under the same laws or thought process that we did back then. I think now we're moving at a much more advanced rate in terms of now we should be able to. I don't want to say everybody. I definitely don't want to put everybody's not prepared. But I think for the most part, men who have a level of maturity would naturally just make sure that the person was okay. Like, you know, and for the most part, I couldn't imagine if, and I don't know, but I'm just saying, this is using for example, I couldn't imagine Jeff Bezos being with his wife, and when they get divorced, he says, well, you get absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
I just couldn't imagine it.
Yeah.
He's going to say, I got all this, take what you need. What you need.
Yeah.
Just take what you need. Now, maybe I give you 500 million? Maybe you get that.
She walked well.
Exactly. She walked beautiful. But if she earned it, then you say, listen, this is what you earned.
Right.
I'm not against you taking what you earned, because I got more than enough.
Yeah.
I got more than I'm ever going to spend, you know?
Yeah, no, it's definitely a concept or something that I haven't thought about from that perspective, for sure. And I do feel as if there's something in, even if it's not with the government, my conversation isn't about having a government contract. That's not my conversation. My conversation is more or less being able to set upfront contracts with each other so that we understand the guidelines of this relationship.
Right.
Because you said something before, and this is also a very big part of how I'm able to help men in this situation. I actually prefer to treat my marriage like a business. It makes it operational. Because when we and to me, it develops love.
Explain that to me.
It's not the absence of love, it actually develops love.
Explain that to me, if I can understand it.
Yeah.
I understand how you know.
Treating your marriage like a business is not the absence of love, it actually develops love. Okay. What I mean by that is, when it is that let's think about a business. You have a business, you have SOPs, you have a mission, you have a vision for the business. Yeah. And everyone that comes into your company has to abide and also fulfill their mission, their vision for their life, their purpose within your company. At least that's how we hire. I like people that come into my company that they could see their purpose being fulfilled by working for my company. And so when you're in my company, we're all striving towards a similar goal, right? So that's the airy stuff.
Okay.
But then in your business, now you have SOPs, you have meetings, you have KPIs, you have all of these things that roles defined, all these things where people understand what they are doing. And now you have this entire organization moving like clockwork, everyone understanding what needs to be done in the business. And so, but then the leaders, they have these meetings to make sure that everything is on the same page. The vision is continuing to be innovative. And there's the conversation by the executive team. In a marriage, the executive team is you and your wife.
Yeah.
The rest of the company is your kids, right? Extended family, all that type of stuff. Your mission and vision is the thing that we both and all have to agree on as the executive team. When people get into marriage, there's no purpose for the marriage, and so there's no understanding of where we're going. And that's where most marriages fail, probably 90%.
Okay.
There's no mission, vision, and purpose for the marriage. Us as individuals may have separate, different purposes, but then why would you bring somebody on your team that's not fulfilling the mission and vision that you're similar on? Right? And so when you, to me, that's treating it like a business. Like, oh, we're going and achieving one goal. This is the thing that we want to do. So when things get hard and when business starts businessing and I got to put my all into the business, now you're going to not feel like I'm being separated. You're going to cheer me on and be like, you got this, babe.
Right.
Because we know where we're going. It's like being on the same team, right? And I say it's like being on the same team. You are on the same team in a marriage, right? And so that's like the understanding side, because now we're of one mind in what we're going for. From a structural standpoint, I think a lot of communication is broken down and not had because of not having a clear delegation. When there's not clear delegation, there's broken communication. And if it is that you don't understand what your role is and what you are supposed to do, then of course you're going to have misunderstandings. Of course you're going to have, you're not going to communicate in a respectful way. Of course we're going to need to have all of these conversations that we don't really need to have, but because you don't clearly understand what your role is, then you're going to have more conversations about it. The person in your marketing team don't talk to the person on the sale. Well, no, marketing and sales are so close together. They'll have a lot of conversation. But the person on the marketing team is probably not going to go up in the executive office and be like, hey, you didn't do your job, right? And they're all connected at some point, but you understand what you're supposed to do. I understand what I'm supposed to do. We come together to make sure that we're all doing what we're supposed to do. Here's where the meetings come in.
Okay.
How many times do people in marriages actually meet to understand where we are in going towards the mission? Not even in going towards the mission, just on a weekly basis. We meet with our teams a few times a week. Right, just to understand where where are we going. In a marriage, people try to check date night. Like let's even give you date night. Date night is supposed to be fun. It's not for operations. Exactly, it's not a business meeting. But it's not only about business. You need to have a relational meeting as well. How are you in the area of affirmations? How are you in the area of sexuality? How are you in the area of security?
Right.
How are, like, there's so many different areas of life and being
Absolutely.
that we have, but we have no idea how the other person is feeling in those areas. And so we go weeks and weeks and months without being able to express how we feel. And so when our engine is ready to blow, that's when people start vomiting all of the things because they've never had a chance to express how they feel and what they're feeling. And the truth is, most people don't even know that this is a thing and I'm supposed to share these things.
Right. Right.
And so without knowing, you keep it all inside and you want to you don't know why you're not able to get it out. You don't even understand what you're feeling. And it's because this framework just hasn't existed. And so having it like a business gives you the ability to have a structure that actually fosters love. Because when you understand those things, the level of intimacy goes up.
Yeah, I can see that. I think that you're onto something in regards to that business, it being running it like a business. At first, the reason why I actually explained it because it sounded cold and it sounded cold and separatist. You know what I mean? Like, because the business usually you're going to have executive team, like you said, you got to have the marketing team, and like you said, the marketing team is never going to tell the business team or the executive team anything. You know? The guy in the storeroom is never coming up to talk to you. So I was separating it in my mind because of the business structures that we understand. But
that's the problem right there.
Right. Okay.
Why is the business ran like that? If you study a lot of founders, great founders, even this guy, Jeff Bezos, he hates all the the diplomatic, all the structure. They talk about it. I'm studying Walt Disney right now. He doesn't like it at all. He's like, take all that structure out because it separates people.
Fracturing.
Exactly. So I understand what you mean. And this is the reason why I was talking to one of my boys today. And I'm saying, bro, business books is cool, but understanding people reading their biographies, and when you understand, you really hear how these founders who have created, who have lived, and they're at the end of their life, they're either long gone or whatever, and you hear how they really think, those business books, bro, is corrupting business. Literally.
They're literally, like you said, they're fracturing it, they're splintering off the things that should be kind of cohesively working together for speedy movement, you know, for being able to implement things at a much faster pace than having to ask 20 different departments to sign off on something.
And I want us to go back, but I'm going to say this and I want us to go back. The reason why that keeps happening is because everybody wants to sell for a multiple. So they have to create it where they're far removed. When you read about these guys like Sam Walton and Mr. Price, who created Walmart, he did Costco, and like Sam Price is probably mixed. All of these dudes, bro, they weren't trying to sell; they were trying to change the world and trying to change stuff. So I understand what you mean by business. It sounded cold. That's how my wife felt the first time I said it.
It sounds, but I understand these principles that you're speaking of, which I would liken it more to business principles than running it as a business per se, because business principles become universal. Like business principles can be used in 100% any interaction, right?
100%.
So I like the business principles of it. Absolutely. I think that there should be a meeting. I love the fact that to think about the fact that you should have a family meeting once, whatever that is, like you said, on a calendar. It should be dedicated. That should be it. I think there should be considerations, like you said, a mission. I think that's hugely important. I've never had a mission statement woman at all. You know what I mean? Like, it's funny now that you're saying that. I remember us making vision statements, and all of our visions would be totally different, right? Because everybody's putting the little pasties and all these things on.
Yeah.
They have no real alignment. And then when we talk about them, in no way are we saying, well, maybe we should merge this one and this one so that they become together and we're all working together to push this vision forward.
Yeah.
And so I 100% agree that
my family vision mission statement right there.
I think that's super dope, brother. Like, honestly, when you say it, and I understand that, like you said, there is no successful company that did not have a vision and a mission statement.
Yeah. No.
There is no successful company that didn't have operational procedures in place. And when I say those, they don't have to be cold. It could be sit down and come to dinner.
Yeah.
Would be an operational procedure, right? It's SOP.
Yeah.
There's dinner time, and everybody has to be at the table at dinner time on this, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Sunday dinner. It's an operational procedure. We should all sit down
sir.
at Sunday dinner, and there should be no phones at the table.
Yes, sir.
Right? We should all have this time and time.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to discuss, or everybody needs to write down what are their goals for the month, the year, the quarter, whatever it is, so that everybody here can support those goals. I think likening that, absolutely, I say 100%, and it should be run like a business in that way. Absolutely.
Yes.
Because it would definitely help.
It'll foster the love.
And I could see where, like you said, because now what happens is, like you said, there are people who love working at Amazon. There are people who love working at Apple because the culture supports their vision, supports their mission.
Yes.
And without those operating procedures, without that commitment to a value, to a mission, to a vision, you couldn't support that person because you wouldn't even know what it was. You never asked them. So I think
and most marriages have two subconscious missions and visions happening at the same time. When we start business, well, it's actually the opposite. You go this way, right? Yeah, right. Because you have two people in a marriage. When you start a business and you start busting your butt and you get so in your own world, in your business, she's like, okay, I'm going to support you, but now I got to figure out what I got to do for me. And so now, because she feels excluded from that business, she's now trying to discover her own self, and the separation begins. That's where it starts. And one of the primary things men talk to me about is like, how do you get support from your wife? The question I ask is, what does your wife want to do? And they're always thrown off by that question. Because we're so caught up in all that we want to achieve and taking over the world and all the changes we want to do, we never take the time to even ask our wives, babe, what are you interested in?
Right.
How do we help you achieve your purpose, your goals?
Right.
And what's our unified goal?
Yeah, that would make a huge, I think that would make a huge difference, brother, honestly. Listening to it and just processing it in my head as we're talking, that's a huge variance from the way things are operated now in a relationship.
Yes.
I would be safe to propose that if I probably went and asked 10 of my married friends if they have any type of framework like that, they would say no.
Yeah.
They would say no. No, just from talking to them and being around them for the years, it's more of a, like you said, compromise, happy wife, happy life. It's these kind of accents that people are using. I've never heard anybody say, no, we run ours like a tight ship. We all understand exactly what we're looking for. We all understand exactly what our goal is, and we're all constantly working towards that goal in unison of individual goals.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Here's
something that I hear from men all the time. Bro, her mindset, she got a 9-to-5 mindset. Right? That's something dudes say all the time. And that might be true today, but I think what we fail to realize or remember is that we were once there. And we got liberated by going to a conference, reading a book. Something made us shift that made us want to go somewhere. But I feel that as men, we fail as being leaders of the home, because what would we do in our company if people are not going in the same direction? We try to get them training. right? It's it's either they have a time capacity or something. So we try to get them training, and we really quit on our wives and be like, all right, you do your thing. Like, and we complain versus how does she learn? Because as a leader, we got to figure out how she learns and how she would actually receive the information. Because if I share the information and she's not sold on it yet, how do I continuously follow up as if she's a seller, right? You follow up, told me no, but I'm gonna follow back up, right? Like I'm gonna follow back up, and I'm gonna try to get this deal, because them being on the same page to me is a deal. Like that's the deal, right? So it's like, okay, that didn't work, and sometimes it's frustrating, right? But it's like I'm gonna continue to follow up, understanding how she learns, how she receives information, understanding all of these things, but then even accepting. Okay, she thinks like a 9-to-5er.
Right.
What does that mean? That means that I have to grow my business to a point where I could plug her right into where she would fit. Because she's adding value to somebody else's company.
Right.
How do we get her to add value into mine? And that's me recognizing her power, even as a 9-to-5er. But now it's my responsibility.
Well, I'm gonna ask this for your audience that may be listening.
Yeah, please do.
Popped in my head.
Please do.
At what point do you fire the person?
This is the commitment that we've made. I would feel as if I lost if I had to fire my wife.
Most.
And I understand what you do in a company. I do.
Right.
I do. I do understand. But if you really assess, we have fired people that we haven't been able to bring the best out of. They'll be great in another position, but as a leader, we haven't been able to figure out what position that they'll be great in. I have made adjustments on my own team with people on my team right now who I've wanted to fire, and then reframe how I look at it and think of it from a leadership perspective. Is this person in the right seat? Oh, crap. Wrong seat, right person. Because we already connect from the culture standpoint and the vision standpoint, but now it's the skill set standpoint. If it's skill set, bro, then it's either a skill set that needs training and improving, or they're just in the wrong seat.
Right. Okay.
Those two things could be improved. And as a leader, figuring out how they receive information, how they learn, so that their skill set improves in the thing that they're actually good at.
I like the framework. And this is just something that I'm listening to as we talking. That may be where you have the breakthrough at, is finding that, because it's still, if you're only likening it to the business, those certain things are part of the business that we both know.
Sure.
Most people are going to say, if this person doesn't have this thing, because now you demote this person, because if you're talking about your spouse, you demote the spouse, it doesn't work, right?
When you say demote,
you know, if you would have to liken it to a thing, because at this point in time, if y'all are the two heads, y'all two executives, and if she doesn't have the skill set to do this, and she's unwilling or unable to get the skill set to work and operate at that level, you have to demote her. What you would do in any real company. If that person who was here as the CMO is just not the CMO and cannot do, you have to demote them or fire them. There's no, you don't take but so much time and energy to have to worry about training this person. You go out and you find the person that actually fits into that seat.
Are we
business-wise?
Okay.
In a business-wise.
Okay.
So in your framework, because I think all these components have to work together.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
So we have to find a way that I can't just, because we're talking about a love thing, you know, a relationship thing differently. How do I move this person that doesn't really fit in this seat? How do I get them to stay on board, train them, give them the skills that they need? Because I can't fire them. Like
Sure.
Because I'm committed to.
Yeah.
How do you know what I'm saying? Like that.
No, 100%. And so the answer to that is very similar to what I said before. When you understand how they think and how they learn, I'll give you an example. My wife, when we first got married, I always used to say that she's really disrespectful. Really, like, and not only disrespectful, but she didn't really follow my guide. It was hard for her to trust me, to follow my leadership, that type of thing. We got married after 6 months, right? And so instead of fighting, which is what men do, you got to respect me, I'm the man, da, 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 da. I had to be like, okay, sit back and think about her life experience. Grew up with a single mom. Well, dad wasn't around but left. Great guy. Been traveling and doing her thing independently for a long time. She's now in her 30s. And now I'm asking her, hey, trust me. New entrepreneur. Right? Trust me.
What?
Exactly, right? So it's like, okay, is she wrong for having a pause on trusting my judgment when it comes to certain things, although we're married? She's not wrong. I know what I want. I know what my rights are, but she's not wrong. How do I win her trust? How do I have this thing that I believe I'm right. How do I get her to see it the same way? And so I had to go through, and I learned this a few years afterwards, I had to go through a third party because I would always get really upset when other people say the same thing that I've been saying for years. And it's like a brand new idea to her, and be like, I've been telling you this. And so that used to be a thing. That used to be an argument, a tension point for us. But then again, when I got out of my own way, because of my mission of figuring this thing out, it made me be like, oh, hold on. So every time somebody says something similar or the exact same thing, she hears it, but doesn't hear it from me. I could either try to win the battle or I could win the war. So now we're always going to have a third party. We're always going to have a coach, a counselor, or whatever that helps us. Because I'm not trying to win and be right. I'm trying to win the war. So I'm like, this is going to help us move faster because she's at least going to hear something and we're going to progress. Because now I don't think what she's doing is because she wants to be rebellious. I think it's the paradigm.
Absolutely.
I'm not fighting with her. I'm fighting with her beliefs and her habits. I don't like, so this is how I'm thinking now. So I'm like, okay, it's my job as the leader to figure all these things out and make the right moves so that we continue to progress.
Absolutely.
Until the day comes, which has been progressively getting better and better and better, but I continue to grow and grow and grow, and I want to do more and more and more. So I'm always kind of, every time we get to some comfort point, I'm already over here pushing it, right? So there's always this adapting that's needing, and over time, she trusts me with a lot. I mean, I could go down a list of stuff. She absolutely 100% trusts me, but there's still things that my brain thinks of, and she's like, dude, what? Right.
Another thing, right?
Which comes naturally. And so I'm always seeking the person who have done something similar or way steps ahead that we both respect, she can hear from, that helps us to grow and move the needle forward. That's how and it may cost me a lot more to do that, right? A whole lot more. But what's the alternative?
Right, because you can't, like you say, because you can't fire.
No.
In your situation, likening it to business would be the CEO finding training or offering training to his top.
A mentor, a coach, a business coach, or whatever.
Whatever you're right, whatever you're liking it to, and that's what they're getting. And you would do that for a very high valued person in your company.
You 100%.
Yeah, you would do that. You would say, hey, I'm sending you to this training. I don't care if it costs $100,000.
100%.
I'm sending you over to go learn managerial skills. I'm sending you over here. You would do that. So I could see where, in that sense, you would liken it, again, to the business. Like, I think, so you kind of answered one of the questions is you need to be prepared to have the outlet for that person to learn and grow outside of you. Because you, in that's when the frustration comes in. You're trying to make this person, and they don't, like you said, they don't hear. You can say the same exact thing, and they won't hear it until that other person.
Here's something that one of my mentors said a long time ago. This was probably before we even got married. We went to this conference and heard this. He says, here's the reason why coaching, counseling, those types of things work. The reason why she hears it from me oftentimes is because you're the person that caused the offense. You don't hear from the person who caused the offense that's trying to fix it. And so if you're trying to fix it, you're the one. It's like the thief being the police officer. It's like, bro, you just broke into my house. Exactly. So it doesn't work like that. Which is why you need a court of law or somebody else to come in the middle and help navigate. Yeah. Because when you are offended by that person, it doesn't matter what you say sometimes. They haven't gotten past it. And so it's hard to receive, yes.
It's still an emotion. I can see that for sure, 100%.
Yes.
100%. And I think that's what a lot of people lack is the third party that's trusted by both. Because you could go to your girlfriend, but your girlfriend has bad advice.
Oh yeah, nah.
Right? It's not really helpful.
They got to be qualified. They got to be qualified.
And they got to be somebody that you both feel have the qualifications. It can't just be, I feel he's qualified. Yeah. So go talk to this person, because then that person feels like, again, you're
picking your side. Exactly. You're
biased to the truth or to their needs and wants. But I really like I think the business format has a real place in transposing it onto a relationship.
Yes.
It could be transposed in there and really fit the boxes to make it work.
But here's the great thing, especially for us men. The great thing about running a marriage like a business for us men is that we have familiar terminology. And it feels like something that we could already do because we're already doing it. And so now that you have something relatable, now you're like, I could do that. Right. I do that in this world, so it's easy to transfer. And so now it's mission-based. It's like you have something to achieve.
So how does this work for a man who's never had a business and doesn't understand business, who's just a regular,
It's going to be a learning curve. So the reason why I'm focusing on entrepreneurial men and people in business first is because the kids, the younger generation, they look up to these guys. They look up to Jeff Bezos. Right. They look up to all these very successful people. If they're able to look up and see somebody they want to emulate, we may not have to teach them because they're learning from them.
Okay.
Right? So starting there helps those guys that's in power, who's being seen and be visible, give them some level of hope that I could be successful in business and marriage at the same time.
Okay.
It's going to have a trickle down effect.
Okay.
Then I continue to work my way down to other people. I want to start with people in power because that's the visibility. That's where the nation, a lot of, and then it's almost like doing the opposites, and the people in the middle might be less. Because you go people in power, schools,
Right.
and then the people in between.
Right.
Because
Affected one way or another.
exactly, the people in school, if we give them a new paradigm right away, they'll have the right tools going forward.
Right.
The people in the middle, they're going to be the hardest to change because they don't even understand like roles. Why do we need roles? Roles for what?
I've never done a mission.
Exactly. Exactly. That's gonna be way more work, convincing. Like, I don't have to convince an entrepreneur of this. The reason why is because I just need to say, what's your relationship KPIs? You have a KPI for your business. What's the KPIs for your relationship? Dang, that's a good point. Shoot.
I understand the business owner is going to definitely identify with those points a lot.
Yes.
A lot faster, yeah. 100%.
And what I'll need to do is just create something that
works for the worker of that
exactly
company, not just the CEO company. Which wouldn't be that hard because even in every department there's structure.
Yeah.
Just got to bring the structure down to where they at. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that.
I just haven't taken the time to think of it enough yet because I know who I need to start with.
I can see where definitely the influencer, the leader of the company would be the focus of this because, you know, and then you have a niche targeted audience because they can hear the language of business and how it works.
Yes.
And how, if it works in my business and my business is successful, why wouldn't it work in my marriage and my marriage be successful? It's worth putting that implementation in place.
100%.
To save my marriage. I definitely can see that. 100%. Yeah. Because we need it. I think as businessmen, I think if I had the framework, I don't think that I would be where I am because I didn't have any real, there was nothing really crazy in my marriage. Like, you know, you can see some marriages definitely are doomed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Doomed not to work.
Yeah.
I didn't have that case. We weren't doomed. We had the ability. There was enough there for us to build on, but we didn't have any format or any process in how to build it.
Right.
You know, we just kind of like winging it. All right, if I take you to dinner, if I do this, we should be all right. If I buy you something, buy you something nice, that should suffice. But not understanding that there needed to be floors that needed to be met. Like you say, almost like KPIs that need to be hit. If it's not hitting, we need to figure out why. Those KPIs.
That's what we would do in our business.
And we would stop when we realized that we would have to fix that one part. But that KPI was dragging the other KPIs down. We'd have to fix that one to make sure that now
everything's good. Everything's good.
100%. Yeah.
And so it's a matter of just learning what those KPIs are in that relationship and marriage and just setting up the stuff, and then how do you actually have the meetings, right? What's the guidelines? Because here's where you're going to be talking about and hearing sensitive things, and it's not a place to complain. It's a place to report.
Right.
And if somebody could report how they feel in their relationship and you don't take it as a complaint, it's a lot of beautiful things that happens.
Something else you mentioned that, when having to take into account the experiences of these people, right? The two different sets of experiences is something that I've been working on and really listening to and grasping is how much negative past experiences are playing a part in the decision-making process of what we would call these adults.
Yeah.
The level of adult immaturity that's happening because you haven't dealt with things from a childhood point where you had these negative childhood experiences that are still creeping up into how you make decisions as an adult. And the needs that weren't met as a child that are now causing you to have insufficient data to process things.
Yeah.
Right? Man, it's so many parts to that. I think that even so, going into your framework, it would benefit from having a part where there is some dealing with those negative past experiences, those childhood experiences. Because if you don't deal with those, everything you do is laying on a faulty foundation.
Yeah.
It only takes one trigger to make that foundation blow up. You know, those things need to be healed. And I think when I've realized, talking with quite a few people, that everything that I see that's wrong can be tied to something that you experienced.
Yeah, 1,000%. I totally agree with that. I feel like that is it's like phase 3 or 4, really. Phase 1 is really you. Let's make you whole as the man.
Right.
Right? Like, why are you here on this earth? What could you do? Your skills. And then just understanding your identity. Your identity, your purpose, and your skill set. Those are the 3 main things every man needs to understand before they could go out and try to lead a home. Because if you don't know that about you, you're going to be taking them nowhere very fast.
Now, so in your sense of what we're saying, and this is just to add texture to it and context to it, in that, those 3 things that you mentioned, can you know those without understanding without understanding what it takes to know that? Like, can you know your purpose without knowing how your purpose is related to who you are? Can you really know yourself without understanding these things that make up who you are? Because who you are is going to be partially defined by your purpose is going to be dependent on that. Your skill set. Can you actually develop the skills necessary to fulfill this if you don't know where the default lines are at for you to actually build a skill set? Because if you don't have proper planning ability, which comes from your lack of, or you don't have proper assertiveness, or you don't have the decision-making ability because you're indecisive based on certain things, how do you touch or nose? And I know we glimpse over it. And I know that takes a lot of process, and sometimes we don't have the time to stop to do the work because that's a heavy work, and that's a continuous work.
Yeah,
it's continuous long-term work.
Yeah,
we need to have the empathy of understanding. From what I've seen, is that is what I realize is holding a lot of men back. Is men? They're not. Who are you?
Yeah.
And why are you?
Yeah.
Like you said, what's your purpose?
Who am I? Why am I here?
Why am I here? Like, why
what
am I here? Not only why am I here, but why am I here?
Yeah, your current location.
My current location. Like, why am I here? Why am I not there? Most of us are always saying we should have been there. We should have been a lot further. Well, why aren't you? What has stopped you from being that? And most times I've found that it's a lack of knowledge of self.
Yes.
It's a lack of knowledge of self. Yeah.
Always.
You gotta have that component where, this is why we always say entrepreneurship is a spiritual journey, because it really reveals inside of you inadequacies.
Yes.
It reveals inside of you weaknesses, also strengths.
Yep.
But without knowing that, without having that level of intuitiveness, insightfulness, the revelations that come through that, it becomes really hard to really reach your goal. It's almost like not having pain and thinking you're ever going to, like you're going to get muscles without feeling the pain.
Yeah.
It's not possible. You got to go through that hurt. You got to deal with it. You got to sit in it. You got to understand. You got to respect it. And I think you come out on the side greater at that point.
100%.
So,
I heard somebody say that the most effective book that you would ever read in your life is the your previous chapters of your own life.
I believe it 100%.
Because that allows you to reflect, understand, study, make adjustments.
Yes, indeed.
Right? Without being able to make adjustments and understand who you are, then you will never understand or fulfill
Absolutely.
why you're here.
Yeah, big time.
That's why in like the people that I coach, it always starts with you.
Honest you.
Always.
Honest reflection.
Yes.
Not the fairy tale you told yourself.
No. The real you.
The real you. You got to
The real you. A client sent me a text, I think it was yesterday. He sent me a text telling me, thank you so much. The change that he's had in his relationship with his wife. He's like, and to think it had to start with me.
Right. I was all this time I was pointing at her. She wasn't doing what she was supposed to do. Yeah, I find that, and I'm guilty of that. So I could relate to him 100%.
Bro,
I'm guilty of that same thing.
It's one of the things that I wish most men would stop doing. Stop pointing fingers and just realize that it starts with me. And most people would say, but it takes two to be in a relationship. Sure.
Right.
But it takes the first person to throw the ball.
Absolutely.
If we wanted to play catch and we both held the ball, there's no game. Exactly.
Right. Absolutely. I think that accountability piece you mentioned, because that's really what that is the man being accountable for where it is. And
yes.
I think accountability is probably one of the highest forms of power that we could actually have, is to be accountable for ourselves, to be accountable for where things are, how things got to be.
Yeah.
Once we don't take that accountability, we give the power to everything else, to the store, to you give it to the lawman, you give it to the court, you give it to your boss, you give it to everybody else. You give it, you even put it on her. That's what makes you blame. But if you said to yourself, I take full accountability, you take back all the power.
Yeah.
Because you could change everything.
Exactly.
You could change everything at that point. And most men don't want to take accountability because they got to go through the hurt of feeling like I messed this up.
Yeah.
It's my fault. I did this.
It's the only way you can make change. It's the only way you can make change, bro. And true sustainable change.
Absolutely, brother. You got to take it.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think most of us don't do it. Right? Most human beings. Yeah. It's not even just men.
Just people.
Women, you know, women have
1,000%.
Women don't do it, kids don't do it.
No.
we get mad at the kids when they don't want to take responsibility, but definitely we doing the same exact thing.
Exactly.
Like we ready to almost give them a beating. You know you broke this thing. You don't want to tell the truth, and we do the same exact thing. We lie to ourselves over and over again.
Yes, sir.
That off on the job did it. I didn't get a promotion. You know, all these other things without saying, nah, that's all me.
Yeah, bro. All me. And I mean, we'd end here. I want our viewers to hear from somebody going through and who has been through, and now I've kind of made it a part of my life's mission to help people on this journey, and to prevent going on this journey, is understanding that it all begins with you. It begins with me. It begins with you. We could blame, we could point fingers. They have a part to play. But your commitment to being a leader that takes your team somewhere great is what it comes down to. This is the reason why Michael Jordan, LeBron James, all of these people who play with teams, they lead their team to somewhere great. And the question you have to ask is, would you be the LeBron James to bring yourself a championship? Any final words, bro?
I would just like to say, appreciate you for allowing me to come on and have this conversation, this candid, open, vulnerable conversation, because I think that in my journey of healing, which I just want to, hopefully tell your audience, I have a show on YouTube currently, which is called Sins of the Father. And it's on YouTube, and it's Sins of the Father _ by I'm the host, Ani I Am. And we talk about how the healing process needs to be, like he said, taking accountability for why you're making the decisions you're making, taking accountability for how you may be allowing experiences that may have happened to you to not allow you to move forward and heal, and then to prevent us from passing it on to future generations and holding other people accountable without, understanding and giving them grace based on past experiences. So I would love for anyone who's interested in healing and being a part of a journey of healing those negative past experiences, those negative childhood experiences, to please check out Sins of the Father on YouTube.
Man, that's powerful. And when you even hear the name Sins of the Father, bro, we don't even realize how the things that we do, how it affects our kids.
Absolutely.
And you may be in a position right now where you're doing things that you have no idea how it's affecting your kids, and his show is going to help you through navigating that. So, Ani, bro, thank you so much, bro.
Man, it's love, man. I always appreciate it. Always have a good time, man.
Always
a great time.
And guys, Ani and I, we have so many of these conversations, which is why we said, bro, let's just jump on and get it done, because it would be so easy for us to jump on and have 2-hour conversations at a time.
Right.
And it just starts just like that. Right? So I hope somebody receives and life is transformed. You got some value out of this. And if you did, love it. Keep tuning in. Peace and love, y'all.
Peace.